Hey Dub, this is Dave Desai. We need to talk about Jung Kook crying and what is going on with that, as well as Jin filing one of his last papers that means he is about ready to leave soon, and then something that RM mentioned that has gotten ARMYs very emotional. But before we get into that, I have an announcement to make, so roll that clip. I absolutely love working with brands that actually help people. We definitely all don't drink enough water, and it can be weird trying to drink so much water and just not knowing if it's enough. You're supposed to drink 10 to 8 cups of water to get that K-pop idol glowy skin, but no one does that. So today's sponsor is called Liquid IV. They sent over one of my favorite flavors, grape. This product is easy to use. They come in this pouch, and then you have the individual sticks that you can bring with you. You just pour, shake, and you're good to go. I don't mind drinking water, but you often crave a different flavor once in a while, and in those times you could be drinking water, right? Because we never have enough. So Liquid IV is a good replacement. It tastes really good. This definitely has a much better flavor. One of the biggest things that I drink a lot is soda and coffee. These things are delicious, but dehydrate you severely, and the main issue with the drinking it, as I said, isn't even the drink, but that you're not drinking water. Liquid IV is a good supplement to get hydration into you faster, much faster than water, and has 3 times the electrolyte compared to sports drinks. No GMO or anything like that, and vitamin C, B3, B5, B6, and B12. And I feel really good after drinking it. If you don't like grape flavor, they have lemon lime, acai berry, and strawberry. Now, if you use the code DUMPLINGS, you will get 20% off and free shipping. I will also leave a link in the description, so make sure you check that out, and thank them for sponsoring today's video. Recently, RM did a Rolling Stone interview with Pharrell, and they both dropped a lot of tea, both on themselves and a little bit of the industry. Of course, K-pop is now notoriously known as a dark industry, and a lot of bad things happen in it. However, this is not something that is exclusive to K-pop. The American industry was more like that in the past as well. It's just developed a little bit past that point now. But there are a lot of good things about K-pop that we often overlook. One thing that K-pop does really well is that in Korea, boy bands are still respected as real musicians, whereas in America, they're not so much. Pharrell, during this interview, talked about how saying someone is in a boy band is almost used as a way to diminish their success, saying they're manufactured or they have something handed to them. And these things were said to NSYNC, Backstreet, and even the Beatles, and these were things they had to endure in the height of their career. But Pharrell even talked about if they weren't boy bands, they'd still be able to create the same quality of music as they were able to do with being in a band. And I really thank Pharrell for not only respecting those older boy bands, but respecting an amazing human being in front of him that is also a part of a boy band that often gets treated as less than. I find it very interesting because even if the music was manufactured and created by a big corporation to make money, as if that means an artist doesn't work hard. Something we see in K-pop all the time is, yes, most artists are manufactured. They're literally put through a K-pop trainee program to be a dancing and singing machine. And even then, they're overworked. And we see idols faint and pass out on stage. To claim that they're not working hard, aren't we all slaves to the system too? Most people work a 9 to 5 and are doing it for the sake of helping the corporation make money. But we as people try so hard to find ways to tear other people down. This was just my interpretation of what Pharrell was trying to get at. RM did respond to this to say that he was quite flattered that Pharrell was speaking about the industry in this way. RM made sure to emphasize that he is not the spokesperson for the whole industry, and he is just one person. And so RM didn't want to generalize and wanted to say that there's good and bad in all industries. RM talked about his journey as an underground rapper and then suddenly finding himself in the middle of everything. Whether that means finding himself in pop music or finding himself in the behind the scenes stuff. RM also got lucky to admit that he worked very closely with Bang PD, who was an artist himself and understood the process in making music with integrity and soul. RM also wanted to emphasize to all of the upcoming and new K-pop trainees that they need to know that they are human and ask them to not forget that. My take on what was said is I've learned that it's very easy at the start of anyone's career to see some growth and not want to stop. Not wanting to stop so much that you don't even feel like sleeping. You literally run and live off of the adrenaline. It becomes addictive. How far can you go? But it's important to know that you shouldn't be pushing yourself to that level, and it may even be better to sometimes step away and go to sleep rather than working through the evening. Of course, BTS members would never say this as they have done overnight night, sleepless nights too many times. But I would say that at a certain point, let's just say if you're studying for a test, since I think it is final season, you're really not going to obtain any more information if you don't sleep. So just sleep. Honestly, the results of that test are not going to matter 5 years from now. It seems that members are getting slightly more emotional since the military enlistment and possibly their time to go. And of course, people for some reason just really want to cry. So there's been circulating clips of older moments that are quite emotional. Jungkook is known by ARMY as the baby and cries a lot. There's been moments in the past, many moments, not just one, that Jungkook had screwed up on stage, and they're really small screw-ups that likely every member has done, but they typically don't care or they simply forget about it. And the screw-ups that Jungkook does, ARMYs likely do not notice. But Jungkook knows and often gets very emotional about it. If you're a guy like me, who as a child and even still is very emotional, you've likely heard the phrase "men don't cry," or my family would say, "men would rather bleed blood than cry tears," which is just a toxic phrase. And Jungkook does not follow or buy into any of these things. During one of BTS's last tour before they had to stop touring due to COVID, this was during the Love Yourself tour, Jungkook spoke very candidly about how emotional he felt, this being one of the last tours before his break. He also talked about him crying and how it's not something that he is embarrassed about. Showing sensitivity and showing emotion is not something embarrassing. To be honest, I think we live in a world now where these emotions are expected. I don't want to be with someone, male or female, who decides to hide their emotions constantly and can't communicate how they feel. It takes a certain type of person to be in tune with their emotions to cry, because you have to know what you're sad or really happy about and then feel that emotion in order to cry. If you're a robot, then how does that relationship work? You can not only never be in tune with your emotions, but you can never understand your partner. Jungkook crying and often being sad over screw-ups and mistakes is so beautiful to me. It shows how much these performances mean to him and how hard he works to ensure that he doesn't screw up. I can't imagine being that passionate about something that a small mistake would make me tear up. A little while ago, J-Hope gave Jungkook some really helpful advice. This was during a concert, and I think this was during Jungkook's solo performance for Euphoria. J-Hope is honestly one of the parents of the group, and I really hope he can devote some time in his career to mentor trainees, because I think he would be very good at it. J-Hope told Jungkook to pace himself when he was performing. Since Jungkook gives 110% with every performance, it can be exhausting. And when you feel out of breath or your body is about to give in, you need to know that limit and pace yourself around that. And that is what being a professional is. So J-Hope's advice is amazing. We've gotten some good and bad news recently. Good news is that there will likely be new albums all next year. So these are all the remaining members' albums for 2023, and then they will enlist. And HYBE had talked about being able to release some pre-recorded stuff in that time that the members are gone. Since Jin will be kicking off the enlistment first, it was definitely wondered when it will be and what the situation of BTS would end up looking like. Looks like they will go solo and then come back in 2025. HYBE has made it very clear, and this is important as HYBE needs to keep their investors happy, and the best way to do that is transparency. People aren't going to want to put their money into something that is still up in the air. Now, everyone believes the military enlistment is going to happen very soon for Jin. It was reported and rumored. Still no official announcement from HYBE though, so it is still a rumor, but it is believed that Jin filed to remove his military postponement that was initially given to him. So initially the postponement would allow for Jin to wait, I think, until the very end of this year, so the 31st of December. Now the postponement is allegedly rumored to be removed. He has to enlist before then, and likely any time at this point. So I assume once the astronaut and the album promotion is done, he will be on his way. It is actually such a smart move for Jin to release his album right before he's gone, because there's so much coverage around Jin right now. Might as well channel it into the album and get people talking about the album and buying the songs while all that press is on him. Jin has gotten so much hate in the last few months for not enlisting and thus not putting his country first and all that. The fact that the government has been arguing for so long about this issue, and it seems like Jin didn't listen to all that. He was waiting until everyone on his team was ready, and then he would announce his plans, and that is what he did. I'm sad that he had to go through all that hate, and it wasn't just a little bit of hate. The amount of media coverage around the enlistment was shockingly high, and new news came out like every other day. For him to constantly read that and think, I am going to go, Jesus, just must have been so frustrating. We are anxiously waiting for the news that Jin has been admitted to the service, and then we are definitely anxiously waiting for his return. I still really don't think he should be forced to go, and regardless of whether he'd want to or not, it should have really been considered for a full exemption. I think it's unjustified in a time of pure economic uncertainty. The Korean government is taking away a huge money powerhouse. They need BTS more than ever. They need more sources of revenue for the country more than ever. I just don't know if if they're making the right decision. But I will give it to Korea for standing their cultural values over their monetary interests. So good for them for keeping their values. But what do you think about all this? How do you feel about the rumors of Jin canceling the postponement, Jungkook's views on crying and him crying about not performing together before lockdown, and what do you think of RM's message to trainees telling them to not forget that they are human? Let me know what you think. Make sure you check out my Patreon for more videos, link down below. Thanks for this lovely comment right here. Love you. Bye.